like I have great, happy, well-rounded kids. I've gotten remarried since. My ex-husband has not. But we do like things together, all of us. We celebrate all of their birthdays together. We are together every Christmas morning, all of us, like this nice blended family. My ex-husband and my current husband, they're not going out for a beer together, but they really get along, and it's like a beautiful relationship.
Hi, I'm Rachel Green, Brooklyn-based divorce mediator and collaborative attorney, and this is my podcast, Keep the Kids in Mind. Join me as I chat with other industry professionals about everything from smoothly navigating your way through divorce to prenups, all the while keeping the kids in mind. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Keep the Kids in Mind, where we talk about restructured families and how to help your kids come through whole and sane as possible after a family has divorced or separated. I am happy to have as my guest today, Abigail Palanca. Abby has the unique experience of having been my client, and she has agreed to come on Keep the Kids in Mind and share with us some of her experiences. Abby is also a real estate broker at, where are you working these days, Abby?
I'm at Sirhan.
At Sirhan. And she's a fantastic real estate broker, and she may have some experiences to share with us about separating couples who are buying and selling real estate as well. So welcome, Abby. I'm thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm a happy client of yours.
Yeah, I mean, that would be really a surprise if you came on my podcast and then
said, hated your services.
Right, I was confident and
right. No.
Yeah. So how are your kids doing? What's going on?
They're great. I mean, we, I know I tell you this every time we touch base, but we owe you so much. I mean, we are now a very happily blended family. My ex-husband and I separated about 10 years ago. So we've kind of been through all the seasons of it. Not so nice in the beginning, as you can imagine, when there are a lot of feelings involved, but I think meeting with you right away, you were really able to kind of help us lay out a roadmap. And you were always very kind of insistent on, like, is this best for your kids? Like, are you doing all of this with your kids in mind? And those reminders were really great for us, because I think it helped us lay out something that really worked long-term, worked beautifully for the kids, and kind of helped us become great friends again in the process, Yeah.
My recollection is that your ex was very angry and upset. And I felt like I was like tiptoeing around, like trying not to poke the bear, because I just I knew he needed to be where he was, and he needed time to recover, kind of. And
definitely.
And I just tried to be as gentle as possible, and it took a few years.
It did. It took so it took us 7 years to actually get officially divorced. And I think it was because, for the same reasons, there were just a lot of feelings involved, and there was no real rush for it. So it really was important to me that we kind of do it in stages that emotionally kind of kept us all intact. Our kids were very young when we separated. They were 3 and 5. So
now they're 13 and 15.
Yeah, it's crazy how time flies, right? Yeah. And I remember not too long after we separated, my daughter and I walking home from school together one day, and she had just said, you and Dad don't fight anymore, and this is really nice.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So I was like, okay, whatever we're doing is working. And I'm sure many of your clients, it's not easy to get through it. Everybody has an opinion on how it should be done.
Yeah.
Most people assume it should just really be a contentious situation, and they kind of, they almost kind of try to create that, even if it's not there.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true. We who work in the divorce field call that the Greek chorus of people who are in your ears all the time telling you, "Oh, well, no, you should do this, you should do that." And then your relatives and friends are like they want to defend you. They're like angry on your behalf when you're not even necessarily
angry. Yeah.
angry. And then they're
Yeah.
telling you, don't let them off the hook.
Exactly. Yeah. That was the hardest part for me to get through while we were going through it, is because, you feel one way and you want to do one thing, and then you have all of these opinions in the background and you start to second guess yourself.
Yeah,
But for me, I was like, you know what, at the end of the day, like whatever I'm doing is working. Like the kids are happy. They like when we come together, as a family, because even though we're separating, we are still a family. Like these
right.
kids don't lose their family, and they shouldn't have to. So that was something that we
You're
really
still right. You're always going to be their two parents.
yeah. So it's something that we always tried to keep in mind. And I just have to say, like, I have great, happy, well rounded kids. I've gotten remarried since. My ex husband has not. But we do like things together, all of us. We celebrate all of their birthdays together. We are together every Christmas morning, all of us, like this nice blended family. My ex husband and my current husband, they're not going out for a beer together, but they really get along, and it's like a beautiful relationship. And we really owe it all to you for just kind of, helping us keep the course. So thank you.
Well, you don't owe it all to me because
We did the work. We did the work.
That's right.
Yes,
I just
but
helped guide you, but
yes,
I'm so happy to hear that. I mean,
yeah,
that's one of the main reasons I do this work is I know how all-encompassing and engrossing it can be to be breaking up with somebody. And it's like you can't think of anything else, but you have these kids
yeah,
who need your attention. And I feel like I'm trying to help people find their way through the navigating the negotiation of the divorce and figure out what are the next steps and what makes sense and what's fair and what's going to be workable. And then I also want them to remember the little people who are at home who didn't initiate this. They didn't ask
right.
for it, but it's changing their lives.
Yeah. No, I mean it's such a shock, right, to them and their system, and that's what I felt horrible about, and I'm sure every parent does.
Yeah. And I see parents who are feeling like guilty. And then, I had a client once who had a Build-A-Bear birthday party that she could not afford for her daughter because she just felt like, she said to me, "Oh, you know how it is when you're feeling really guilty as a divorced mom. And so you go out and you just book this party that you can't afford for your child." And I was like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing.
I mean, I can understand the sentiment, right? Like you want to do whatever you can in that moment to put a smile on their face, and for the moment or for the day or whatever it is, just kind of give them this amazing life, because you do feel guilty that I felt like I failed them, in a way. Like they were so little, and it's hard. The first weekend that they spent with my ex-husband when we were finally separated, I couldn't sleep. Like I was literally just home by myself sobbing. And I finally called him and said, "Can I just sleep on your couch?" Like I just, they're so
Yeah.
little, and to feel like you're not there for them. So I think it looks different for everybody.
I think so. Did you go sleep on his couch?
I did. He let me sleep on his couch. And it's just, we both had those things kind of back and forth for a bit where, we needed certain things. We felt like our kids needed certain things. And you don't always do what's comfortable, right? For you, but you do whatever you think is best for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And has your ex dated people that you know of, or?
I'm sure he has. Nothing that he really speaks about. We're far enough down the path now that we tease him a little bit about it. But he'll do things at his own pace. I'm sure he's dating. Yeah, he has nights where he asks me to take the kids, so he's definitely doing something.
What schedule do you have? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
No, go ahead.
What schedule do your kids have for spending time with both of you?
So you were actually really instrumental because I think in the beginning we were just like, well, whatever works, and you were like, no, you need a plan, like you need a roadmap. So we initially, we were every other weekend. You hear my new little one. We were every other weekend, and then so it would be like Monday me, Tuesday him, Wednesday me. And then we felt like that was a lot of shifting for them. So then we kind of decided every 2 days we would switch during the week. So they would have, at least 3 to 5 days straight with one parent, because it's a lot when they're little and taking all their stuff and going back and forth. But one thing that we both really agreed upon is like, if one of them was like, with me today, let's say, but they were like, I'm really missing dad, you can go to dad's.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to really be hard pressed to stick to the schedule because, kids should be with whatever parent they want to be with at that moment.
Yeah.
So that I think was really great for them and for us, and it worked. Yeah, I mean,
it didn't make them feel like they didn't feel guilty if they were with you, but they wanted to see dad.
No, because we would always just say like, it's great, like, and sometimes I'd say I'll come with you.
What a gift!
I'll come with you, and I'll come in, and we'll have coffee, and then I'll leave.
Because one of the things therapists say that children of divorce experience is what they call loyalty conflicts, because they're with you, but they miss dad, and they like feel like they have to hide that.
Right.
So it sounds like you just gave them space and said, it's normal. Of course, you're going to miss the other parents. So if you want to go see them. And I guess you lived close enough to each other.
We lived close enough, so it worked. I noticed my daughter never felt guilty.
Yeah.
She was like, I really want to be with dad. Like, she didn't care, if she was hurting anybody's feelings. But my son, I would notice that struggle in him, and I would notice him get quiet. And I could tell that he would want to say, like, I want to be with mom, or I want to be with dad. And, you don't want them to feel guilty. Especially if they're keeping that in, you don't know what they're really thinking and how they're kind of unpacking those feelings. So that's why we were always really good about saying, if we saw them struggling, like, why don't we all go out to dinner first? And then you can go home with dad, or, dad will drop you off, but he's going to come in and hang out a little bit, to kind of get everybody feeling comfortable. So they felt okay about being more vocal and honest with their feelings.
It's so great. I mean, it just sounds like you guys were tuned in enough to your kids that you were able to really tailor the process toward their needs.
Yeah. I mean, you could see it on their little faces, you know what I mean? When, they're struggling internally. And I just never wanted like what happened to us to affect their relationships, as they got older.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that happen, with friends, or I see friends whose parents have divorced, and, my friends are in their 40s and they're still struggling with their parents' divorce because parents can't get it together. Who wants to live life that way?
Oh my gosh.
That's
really hard. Well, I know I have a friend whose parents divorced when she was 22. So she grew up. I mean, she's one of those people who say, I wish they had divorced 15 years earlier, because she grew up in this house with these parents that were not in love with each other at all.
And you feel it. You feel those feelings, right?
Right. And then she ended up eloping when she got married because she could not have her parents in the same room. And then the first time they were in the same room was their kids' high school graduation. I mean, we became friends because her daughter is good friends with my daughter, and they were graduating together from high school. And that was the first time my friend's parents, the grandparents of the kid graduating, were in the same room together.
Isn't that crazy?
30 years later. Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to pass those things on to your kids, and you don't want to make it difficult for them. And then when they go on to have their families, like now they're still struggling with what parent do I see on what holiday. And
I mean, I've had a lot of people who come to me for prenups because they're getting married and they saw like their parents, they said, I do not want to repeat the mistakes that my parents made.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, I mean, I often tell people that when we're doing divorce mediation too, that like I had a guy who came to me for a prenup, and his dad, he felt his dad was totally screwed over by his mom during their divorce. Like his mom was still in the house. She was paying, he was paying a lot of spousal support and child support. He was living in like a really crummy basement apartment, you know, where there was no room for the son to stay. And like his father was just bled dry in the divorce. And
Wow.
so when you know, people are proposing terms that are like completely uneven, and I'll say, you know, remember, like, you know, think, how are you going to feel in 5 weeks? How are you going to feel in 5 months? How are you going to feel in 5 years? Like, do you
Right.
really need to be that grabby? You know, at this point, try to think of the long term. This is a legacy. Like, I think children always know the truth of their parents' divorce.
Yeah.
And, you know, your kid's going to figure out who was greedy and who was generous.
Right. Yep. Definitely.
Yeah. So these things are passed down through the generations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we were just really mindful about, you know, just wanting to, it was definitely a long game, I
Yeah.
think, for us, which now looking back, I'm surprised at myself that, like, at both of us really, that we had kind of the foresight to play the long game.
Yeah.
Because I still remember some of those feelings, like, you know, coming into your office and being so upset with each other and, you know, just kind of wanting to go our separate ways. So the fact that we were able to kind of come, you know, kind of full circle so quickly and say, okay, let's sit down and figure out what we need to do for them. I mean, if we can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, I mean, I think I don't know if that's true. I mean, everybody can do what they can do.
Right.
But, you know, you had some tools and some insight to your children, so you were able to keep them in mind while you were negotiating these things. But it is true that you guys started at such a high conflict place. And, you know, it's wonderful to hear the story again of how you navigated it and came through with everybody intact and happy. And yeah.
But you really need everybody to sign on, right,
Yeah.
for that. So
Right.
as you're, you know,
Only do mediation if you both agree that you want to do mediation, because it
right.
does require that you sit there and listen to the other person and be in the room together.
Yeah, which is not easy.
No.
You know, as you're feeling one way and you're listening to your partner, like, you know, vocalize their feelings that you most likely don't agree with. It's difficult to kind of sit there and go through that process, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm meeting with a couple this morning that they haven't quite decided whether they're doing a post-nuptial agreement but planning to stay married, or whether they're moving toward divorce, you know, and they haven't even been able to decide that.
Yeah.
So everybody takes it one step at a time.
Yeah. I mean, emotions are so high, you know, and it's hard to really see clearly
Right.
in the process. But
And
it's also, go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's okay.
No, I was going to say it's also, you know, like we've gotten to this place, but not only, you know, did he and I have to kind of sign on for this life of, you know, peace and friendship and all of that. Like, you know, my current husband also really had to sign on for that life too, you know, which is a piece that you don't often think about. Like if you have this new person in your life and they're not really on board with having your ex-husband over for Christmas breakfast, you know, like it's going to make your vision and what you hope for your kids difficult.
Oh, that's true. How has that been? I mean, when did he meet your kids, and like when did you start talking to him about that?
So we're together 5 years. He has 3 boys of his own. So he's divorced as well. So I think that was really helpful because, you know, he was also kind of keeping his kids in mind. And, you know, we were kind of both on the same page with just the life that we wanted for our children. Like neither one of us wanted our previous divorces to affect, you know, the happiness of our kids. So that was really great to kind of be on the same page with such an important piece of the puzzle. He met.
And are his kids like around the same age as your kids, older, younger?
So my son is 13. He also has a 13-year-old. My daughter's 15. He also has a 15-year-old. And then his youngest son is 10. So we have 6 kids running around this
Wow.
crazy house.
And like how long did you date before you started introducing him to the whole cast of characters?
I would say we dated a month or 2 before, so it was rather early. I had been in previous relationships before that I think were more just to kind of keep me busy when I didn't have the kids. It was like someone to go to dinner with, and like companionship. And
Right.
when I think it's going to work with your children and when it's not. But I think right away we seemed to be on the same page with so many things. We got along so well. That I had that conversation with my ex-husband, and we kind of took it from there, and introduced them slowly.
Yeah.
My son thought it was great. He had 3 boys. They went running and playing, and spent 5 hours together. My daughter was incredibly guarded. She felt like she was, I think, betraying her dad. If she got along with him right away. So she really kind of kept him at an arm's length for a long time. He had to really work for her affection. It did take some time. But now they're thick as thieves.
Yeah.
And she comes home, and if she wants to tell me some gossip, she's like, "Where's Joe?" Like, they have a really beautiful relationship, but my husband's fell out. But, like all things, it takes time, and you have to be willing to let them go at their pace.
Right.
Because I think when you try to rush it, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure.
Well, right. And then also you don't want, her to feel like she's being forced to hang out with this person that she doesn't like yet or doesn't accept. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the first time we went out, all of us, she didn't come. She told me clear as day. She's like, "I'm not going." She's like, "I want to talk to Dad about this first before I'll go." And she was 10. I mean, she was, she was young.
Good for her for that, for knowing those boundaries and saying, "I need to take care of myself." And that's great.
But I heard, when we came home, I could hear her whispering to her brother, "How was it? How were they? Were they nice?" So
a little FOMO.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, Abby, you must see families in transition a lot in your work as a realtor.
I do. It's funny when someone I know from the neighborhood, but maybe don't know very well, calls or sends a text and they say, "I'd love to grab a coffee." I'm always like, "Are we getting divorced?" Like 9 times out of 10, that's what that phone call means.
That's code word.
Yes, exactly.
I want to grab a coffee.
I want to grab a coffee.
Yeah.
Yes. So, for a while I was joking that I was, the divorcee agent, because I was getting a lot of those calls. And because, people want to go to someone familiar, I was getting really both sides, like both halves of the couple. But I think having been through it, and realizing how emotional it is, I was really able to kind of keep both sides completely separate. I never crossed any, information. I never made it seem like I knew what the other side was doing. I mean, that's for that couple, to work out. And you can't add any more fuel to a fire that's already burning.
Right. So have you had situations where the couple was not in agreement about whether to sell?
Several. Yes.
So like one person will come to you and say, "We're going to be listing the house." And then the other one would say, "No, we're not."
Yeah, typically they'll have me in at that, to talk about the options, and one already has like a clear picture of what they're doing. I'm working with a couple right now. We've been in talks for 2 years about their house, and finally through their mediator, they came to the agreement that they were going to have to sell the house. But it took them a long time. And, every few months I would just meet with them and kind of update them on the market. And this is what it looks like if you sell it. This is what it looks like if you rent it. And just kind of keeping them as informed as possible, but, letting them kind of work through it, of course. And, we're at the point now where they're ready to sell. he's moving a little bit slower on prepping the house and moving his things out and all of that. So I get involved as much as someone is willing to let me in, and I'll come in and we will declutter together. And it's so emotional. It's such an emotional time to have to pack up your home and leave it. And I've been there. It's an awful, awful place to be. So you really just have to be patient. You have to be, just kind of an ear for them. But at the same time, you're hiring me for a service and you're hiring me as an advisor. So I do just also have to keep you, kind of abreast of the market and the situation. And, if you wait 6 months, you might not be in as good of a position as you are now. And then we kind of talk rentals and
the market's been so volatile because the interest rates zoomed up and it must be affecting I guess it's more a buyer's market now, or?
There's no inventory really throughout a lot of neighborhoods in Brooklyn. So it really hasn't affected the market, kind of all that much. It's kind of flattened out a bit. We're not really seeing the crazy bidding wars that we were seeing. And it kind of evens out, right? You're either paying the bank or you're paying the seller. You're
right.
One way or another, the numbers tend to work out to be the same.
Yeah.
But with inventory really low, sellers are still, they have a good chance of getting their price.
Well, years ago, I had a couple who, probably this is a realtor's nightmare, but they listed their house, and they had an open house that the realtor ran for them. And then, they ended up with sealed bids. I think at the end of the day, they had 3 bids. And they opened them, and then they used the highest bid as the buyout price for one of them to buy out the other.
Oh, gosh.
And they had not intended to sell the house. This was their plan all the time.
Oh, no.
Because because the only way really to know what a house would sell for is to sell it. No,
to essentially list it, right?
Right, list it. Yeah. So.
Yeah. It's really difficult.
Who've done that though. But
I don't see that. I don't really see that often. I think typically they come, couples come in and they know basically what they're going to do. Maybe someone stays in the house for a little bit while they get themselves on their feet, but they kind of have a date, by X date, we're going to list the home. So.
And do people clean out the house first? Do you want to show it empty or just decluttered?
So decluttered, and then, my team and I, we do our own staging. So we have a warehouse full of furniture that we utilize.
Really?
Yeah. So we do all of that. So basically, we'll come in and kind of do it all for you. Our goal is to just make sure that your house really shines so we can get you the, top dollar for it. So whatever we really have to do in order to get that done, we will.
Oh, wow. That's really good. A great service.
Yeah. Because vacant things tend to look smaller. So, and people really need to envision themselves there. So we try to help paint that picture.
Right. And then do you have situations where the couple is selling their house and then they're each buying something else, 2 apartments or?
2 apartments, or you're going into a rental while you're, looking. In my market, people tend to stay within the same neighborhood. So they're like, okay, he's here. I don't want to be too close. So find me something over in this, part of the neighborhood.
Right. I mean, I have a couple who, one of them, they lived together on 2nd Street. And then when the husband moved out and he moved to 11th Street, just to have some distance so they don't run into each other, I guess, at the market.
Yeah. But I mean, when you have children, it's great to live close if you can. Someone's always forgetting a book or a uniform or, cleats somewhere. And there's a lot of back and forth, for us, I imagine, for all parents.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just you.
No, just me. My kids are the only ones who forget their stuff.
No, I read something that was talking about benefits to children of divorce. And one of the benefits is that they tend to be more organized for their whole lives because they're used to keeping track of their stuff when they're going back and forth. So
I feel that's the one thing still now to this day, I feel so guilty about, watching them pack their stuff. It breaks my heart, Um, and they're older, but my son is like, could you take my iPad and can you drop it off at dad's? And like just that conversation still to this day, I don't know why
It
it
tears at
kills
you.
me. It
Yeah.
really does. Yeah.
Oh. Well, they'll be okay. They'll be more
They
organized.
seem fine, but it bothers me.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just trying to vie for 2 iPads.
Maybe. That's right.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows he's pulling on your heartstrings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think, I'm sure just from watching friends, watching other couples do it, I mean, when you're so focused on your own emotions, it's really hard to keep anyone else at the forefront. But, I think as a parent, we would die for our children, so you have to just kind of really put yourself aside and focus there. But one thing too that I think really helped me, and I didn't do it until years down the line, was actually seek like therapy for myself, because you're so busy taking care of everyone else. Are you really focused on your own emotions? Are you, have you healed, even though it's 5, 6, 7 years later? Like time doesn't heal all wounds. So, I think after you kind of focus on your kids, which of course you'll do first and foremost, it is really important to focus on yourself.
That's great. That's great advice. So you finally found this space to let yourself go to a therapist and process your own emotions about this experience.
Yeah. And it took me a long time. I mean, I think it was like, 5 or 6 years later.
Wow.
When I was finally like, I think I'm okay, but am I really okay? Like, do I keep getting into certain relationships because this is where I want to be? Or is this like all I'm capable of right now?
Right. You're just repeating patterns.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. That's really inspiring. So, Abby, I certainly will. I give your name out as well to couples who are looking for a realtor to help them.
Thank you. I give your name to everybody, everyone.
And I guess your contact information will be in our show notes below.
Thank you so much.
So it's been really a delight talking to you.
Yeah,
Thank you
this
so
was
much
wonderful.
for coming on. And any real estate questions I have, I'll be in touch. And any divorce questions you have, you can be in touch too.
I know where you are.
Okay.